do a little, excuse me, we even do some space sharing. And I just wanted to acknowledge, some project work that we did together to reach youth and families in Tuba City. Eileen, that was back in probably 2016 when Trudy was doing that, I think, with you. Yes, and so that work that we did together, Eileen, is is this same kind of project work several years later. So it's just so good to have you here. Thank you for coming on, and the support that you provide on Navajo Nation and the Hopi Reservation. It's just invaluable, and thank you for your partnership, and welcome to the Community of Practice meeting. I'll stop talking now.
Okay, well, thank you, Chris. Good afternoon. Well, over here it's 1 p.m. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eileen Tohani. I am I'm a member of the Navajo tribe, and I'm executive director of the Center for Independent Living, which is called for Assist to Independence in Tuba City. And we are located directly on, I guess it's a combination of Navajo and Hopi Nation together. They sort of meet real right here in Tuba City. So there is a village, a Hopi village right next to us. So but other villages are further up the road, but we still say that we're on both reservations because the tribes live so close together. And then San Juan Southern Paiute tribes actually live on the border of Tuba City too. So they're all around here. But we do serve the 3 counties in Arizona, and all of them are on tribal reservations. Yes, we have been, we do a variety of different things, and our 5 focus areas are independent living, all under independent living. One of them is transition. The other 4 are our INR, which is in information referral services. The other one's IL instruction, and that could be independent living instruction, which could include so many different types of instructions to participants and their families, and also advocacy, which includes self-advocacy and system change advocacy in our tribal nations. And under transition services, there's 2. One is transition of senior citizens or people with severe disabilities out of nursing homes and back into communities. But under that also falls diversion, which is to prevent people from moving into nursing homes or other institutionalized settings. So that's transition service. And then the other transition services, youth transition services, which is to high school students. So that's a majority of this. But we do a lot of advocacy services for better housing for people with disabilities, better transportation services for people with disabilities, and just overall better health care, so there's just a lot of different areas we are working on currently. So that's me. Are there any questions?
No, but I just to point out the thing that was interesting to me when the transition services, I guess I didn't have a great understanding of the fact that a large part of that was moving folks out of nursing homes. When I hear transition from the kind of the parent center perspective, it's always that youth transition from high school into adult life, or even pre-high school activities. So what I've learned over the years is that much, and Eileen, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not sure how much of a percentage work you guys do, but from a lot of the independent living services that we've seen, at least down here in the valley, are more kind of focused on the transitioning out of nursing home and those types of services.
Mhm.
Is that similar to assisted independent living?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we, because of the lack of housing on tribal lands, we do our best to, and we're not so successful at it because of lack of housing, but we try our best to move folks back out of the nursing homes to their tribal homes, whatever that may be, and trying to improve the housing situation for them so that they have care providers or that they have homes that are fully accessible, as an ADA accessibility, make sure they have ramps, make sure, but we try our best to do that, with the funds we get every year. So I mean, I think off reservation folks have a better, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I've had some dealings with trying to help some non-natives move out of the nursing home and back into like an apartment setting or their own homes. And we've even had difficulty with that because of the current lack of housing. There's like total lack of affordable housing. And the ones that we could find in the nearby communities of Winslow, Holbrook, and Flagstaff were all had like 4 to 5 year wait lists on each one of them. So on one of them, we end up moving her way close to Tucson, which is like how many hours away, 4 or 5 hours away, and out to some rural community that nobody has heard of. That's the only place I mean, I felt really badly for her. I mean, but when housing is such a huge need for people with disabilities, I mean, what can you do? All we can do is advocate and try our best to try to help people find housing. So that's just the situation that's happening right now. So
Thank you.
I have a question, Eileen. How you had mentioned that transportation is something that you help with. What does that look like for you all?
Right now, there's a total lack of transportation on tribal lands. People that are hurt the most by the lack of transportation are people with disabilities and people with very low incomes who cannot afford a vehicle of their own, and they have to rely on others for transportation. We have a transportation program here. We started it back in 2000, I think it was 2014 that we got our first ADOT grant, and we also have a fee for service program where the funding we make from that program just goes right back into the transportation program. But we've been ADOT grantee for the last few years, so we've managed to keep the transportation program running. And what we do is we provide transportation to people with disabilities and elders who are living into the city and nearby communities so that they're able to go shop, do their laundry, just get where they need to be or so they can continue to get the things they need. And that's been working well for us. We used to be able to provide transportation to longer, like let's say Tucson, Albuquerque, for medical appointments for folks who aren't eligible for access, which means they're not eligible for non-emergency medical transport. So we for what we call a donation fare, but we've had to cut back because just the last 2 weeks we've cut back on that because of the cost of gasoline. It's $6 a gallon over here, so it's really hurting us at this point. But we're still doing local IL transportation for folks, and people are really, really appreciative of that. And because there's no transit services at all, there are a few The Navajo, the only transit that's running right now is the Hopi Nation, which is out of Kikotsmavi. And they're like 40 miles down the road. And they make an effort to run back and forth. They have one transit service that comes to Tuba, goes back to the Hopi Nations. That allows the Hopi members to come shop at Bash's, which is the only grocery store within, I don't know, around a 50-mile radius. Other than that, they make runs to Winslow, a daily run to Winslow, a daily run to Flagstaff. But from our here into the city, there really is no other transit service. It used to be Navajo Nation had a transit program that used to run out of Window Rock and come here and go back, but that was it. And they attempted another transit service a few years back, which only ran for a few years, and they shut that down because they couldn't get drivers, basically. I mean, that's a whole nother story there. But there's no transit services. So our program is the only one locally. The Hopi Health Center also has an ADOT grant too, but mainly they concentrate on the Hopi villages up there, just taking people for shopping, the same thing we do basically, and medical appointments. But they stay within a certain mileage of the villages. So, so in the meantime, we continue to work with our regional transportation group, which is NACOG, Northern Arizona Councils of Government, and ADOT, and try to advocate for better coordination between 5310 programs, 5311 programs, so that we all can come up with a better way to serve people with disabilities or elder populations on tribal lands. So that's where we're at right now.
So for those of you not in Arizona, ADOT is the Arizona Department of Transportation. And they, I guess, Eileen, as you're describing, provide some grant funds and services for tribal communities in Arizona.
Yes.
One of the other things I wanted to, oh, go ahead, Ceci.
One of the questions that we just had was how, just speaking more generally, Eileen, and I know maybe you answer specific to Navajo, but what can parent centers do to partner with the Centers for Independent Living?
You said our parents?
Parent centers.
Yeah.
So like raising special kids, how could we? Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, that's actually where I was kind of where I was headed. You know, I was wondering, Eileen, maybe, you know, in addition to some of the activities that we've done together, you know, some of the parent training and youth training stuff, are there other services that you provide in the area of kind of that youth transition piece? And maybe what do those look like?
Youth transition has not been good for us since COVID started. It used to be we would be having community practice meetings locally, so we could meet together with the local high schools, the teachers, and other stakeholders. But that stopped when the pandemic started, and it really has not come back at all. We are aware we need to serve youth in transition, but our numbers have been zero for the last 2 years because we have no contact whatsoever with the teachers of the high schools. I've tried emailing them. I've tried, because my assumption is that if they have the same emails, they would be checking their emails and they would respond to us. But no, nothing at all, nothing whatsoever. And the schools, as far as I know, some of them are shut down. A majority of them are shut down. There's only one school I know of that's in session, in person, like but that's like a grade kindergarten to 8th grade school. But all the high schools are shut down. They're all continuing to go, I guess, virtual. They're all virtual, and I think the reason for that is our president's the president of the Navajo Nation, the tribal chairman of the Hopi tribe. They have the order still stands that they cannot have in-person meetings. Because of that, I think everybody's off doing teaching from home, or everybody's going to school from home, and there's just no way to get a hold of anybody still. I mean, that's what I'm assuming, because I sent out my email saying, hey, we need students. We're participating with our state SILC, State Independent Living Council. We work with them closely to get students for the, oh gosh, is the summer youth program.
Arizona Youth Leadership Forum.
Yes, youth leadership forums, and we have no response. All I can do is send out emails, and I'm hoping they're doing something. So it's I don't know what the answer is. Is just to continue to do what I'm doing, sending out emails to say, hey, we need to hear from you. We need to please send us youth that we can. I've even tried going with Voc Rehab, the tribal Voc Rehab program, to say, hey, we're willing to be a training site for youth who want to learn how to be drivers, because our transportation program, so maybe but no response there either. Well, they respond, but they said all the students are scared to work. They don't want to work. They're afraid. And because they live with families, they live with elders, and they just don't want to work right now, So I don't know. It's just hasn't been good for us in that area, youth transition.
Well, and thank you, Eileen, for that answer. As I mentioned earlier, Raising Special Kids co-locates. Well, we don't co-locate. Eileen has been gracious enough to allow us to have an office in her building, and so pre-pandemic, there were, I think, more opportunities to kind of collaborate and work together. We had a youth advocacy training, parent training event there. I know that, Eileen, you've had some, I'm going to get it wrong, but I think you had some support groups that were running as a part of your center that our staff would attend and also help try to get folks at. But I think, in pandemic times, we as the Parent Center have also been challenged, especially in Northeast, and on the Navajo Nation, and Hopi to connect physically with anyone. Virtually has been also very hard.
Yeah. And we do have the support groups, and we've continued them. We sort of lapsed for a month or two while we tried to let it sink in. When the pandemic first started, we were like, oh my gosh, we're sitting there like in a sort of like in a stupor for like 2 to 3 months before we thought about, okay, what can we do now? And our groups came back, but they're all meeting virtually via phone because internet isn't so great up here. It's like sometimes it's just really, really bad. So the phone has really been working for us. Our groups we have like 3 different groups, but we can use more. I think one of the questions from you all was, what can we do to work together? Maybe that's something that can be done for parents. And I'm very aware that parents with students with disabilities really need support, help, in terms of how to help their child learn to live independently. Uh, and that not only involves independently in their own home, but also in the areas of education, training, and employment for future years. So, but what happened? We have 3 different groups that meet every month, and one is a peer support group. And currently, our peer support, a majority of them are blind individuals. There's one person in a wheelchair, and the rest have visual challenges, but not totally blind. So they meet every month, and they basically support each other's in terms of learning what the assistive technologies are out there. How do you do something in your own home, if you're blind? And then coming on board all the time are people with newly acquired blindness or visual challenges, who need to know how to learn to do something, to cook, to tell time. They're not aware of a lot of things, so they're just sharing that information together. The other one is our coalition group. The coalition, a majority of the peer support group are on our coalition group too. That's our self-advocacy group, our self-empowerment group. Recently, they got a little mini grant from another self-advocacy group out of Phoenix, and they move forward. They've named their coalition group. It's to try to do more system change advocacy group is what they are, in terms of speaking out and educating the public and the community about what people with disabilities need on a daily basis to improve legislation for them, or to improve housing, to improve roads, sidewalks, just different areas. And that coalition group is called Native American, it's called Northern, I have to think about it. I have so many groups I work with. Okay, Northern Arizona Tribal Disability Coalition is the name of the group. And they have a Facebook page up. They're going to be advertising. If they haven't done it yet, they'll be advertising on the radios and in the newspapers about their group, so that they bring on more folks on board, so that they can begin to be a voice of their own. And they're also a self-advocacy group. So that's going well. It's moving along, and they meet monthly, and they use the same phone number every month. So, and then they usually do the same time every month, basically like the 3rd Thursday or the 2nd Tuesday or something. And anyone, they don't necessarily have to be from the tribal nation either. They can be from anywhere. They can call in, and they can join the Facebook groups also. And it's a very good form of support, especially through COVID, we realized, because they started connecting, and they could be a form of social support too, because a lot of them voiced that they were scared when COVID started happening. They were stuck in their homes. They didn't know what was happening, and they started calling each other. So the 3rd group is just a social group that meets every Monday. They just sort of all call in so that they can talk about what their week was like, and they just all talk about whatever they want. So it's a good group. That and this kind of group would probably serve a good purpose for parents with young kids, who are maybe even adult. I know grandmothers, grandfathers, or maybe even mothers have adult children with disabilities right now, so they need support. They need people to talk to. They need to ask questions. So, and then I know there's parents with young children with disabilities too. So I think that would be like a good thing to have, basically. So thank you.
I have a
Go,
question.
Eileen.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
So I had a conversation with someone in Nevada, Robin Kincaid, and she says that in her state, they have two centers for independent living, but one of them is a lot more robust than the other one. And the one that's not as robust is the one that serves the majority of the people in their state. And so she had a question about what are the expectations of centers for independent living that they all should provide, so that way parent centers, when they're going to them, can either, ask those questions or hold them accountable, or I don't know what that looks like. Like, what are the things that all centers for independent livings need to be doing to support the families that they serve?
I think there's a lot that Centers for Independent Living can do. And there's a website you can all look at. It's called ilru.org. And they're the technical assistant unit for all Centers for Independent Living across the United States. And that site will tell you a lot about what their expectations of Centers for Independent Living is. And there's a lot of different family services in there. And it's huge, but the five core services pretty much tells you what families can be helped with, whether it be for an adult member of the family or whether it be a small child from that family or even a baby from that family. I mean, we've assisted families of young children because, they needed a service under one of those five core areas. And there's a lot of different things you could do to help families.
Okay.
That's a great, but Sherelle, that's such a great question. And, in thinking about the 5 independent living centers that we have in Arizona, Eileen's being one of them, and then Ability 360 being another one. They're not really created equal, are they, Eileen?
Yep, no, no.
Ability 360 has a full campus with offices that they lease. They're a part of the independent living services that they provide are a very small piece of what that organization actually does. More so, they're a provider agency. They provide Medicaid, home health services to individuals. So, from your core services, Eileen, it sounds like they're pretty individualized supports when you are connected with somebody who kind of tells you what's going on and
Yes.
you try to help them. Okay.
Yes. What we do initially is we, let's say we get a referral or an application from the individuals, and then we just go out and do an assessment and try to figure out what areas can we help with. If we can't help, then who can we refer them to? Who can help them, and make sure that we do the advocacy to make sure they get the services they need. But again, we're limited by finances. Chris mentioned the difference between us and Ability 360. Ability 360 is huge compared to us. We have like an income of $400,000 to $500,000 a year, while they have maybe 5 million a year. So it's very different. But they are located in a metropolitan area. So is the one out of Tucson, and then the one out of Prescott. There's another one in Prescott, and then there's the little ones are us and Yuma, the one located in Yuma. So.
Yeah. So they do have at least the 5 core areas that they all centers have to follow. And then what happens if there's not a particular area that a center is following? Like, we send a parent there and they're like, well, they don't offer this, but it's one of the 5 core areas. What does that look like?
You can talk to the State Independent Living Council for that state and talk to them, because they are the ones who provide oversight over the Centers for Independent Living.
Okay.
That's a great question, Sherelle. So if we, as a parent center, said, hey, your independent living center should offer some peer counseling and peer support, which that's a core area, right?
Mhm.
And then they actually end up going to that center and get turned away, or maybe it's something they don't expect.
Mhm.
Then Eileen, it sounds like that next call is to the Silk or the State
Mhm.
Independent Living
Mhm.
Council to say,
Uh-huh.
hey,
Yeah.
I've just interacted with this independent living center and they're not providing me services.
Yes, yes.
Gotcha.
Mhm. But like us, we try to, and I think I did talk with Trudy at one point about developing a parent support group.
Yeah.
And I think that was before COVID though. We sort of, what happened with COVID. Everything just fell apart after COVID, when COVID happened. Um, but but if we don't have those services, I'd love to get a parent in here who's let's say motivated enough to start a support group, parent with let's say a child with disabilities, and we would just love to run with that, set it up. Mhm.
So if I sent a parent to the independent, just from everything that you've told me, which really thank you so much for helping us understand kind of the challenges of the independent living centers. They sound very similar to the challenges that the parent training and information centers are, what we do are. But if we were to hypothetically like send a family to we'll just say your center, and with the guidance of, hey, go see what the transition services for youth are there and see if you can access those.
Mhm.
And what you've already told us is that you haven't had any success in interfacing or partnering with schools, right?
Not
So
since COVID. Before that,
yeah,
we could, before that was fine. And I felt we were moving ahead, and I could always call the school, special needs teachers or special ed teachers. I could always call them and speak with them, but now nothing at all.
so in that scenario, if you had a parent,
Mhm.
that could actually help you get in with schools. If
Oh, yes.
then you could call the school and say, hey, I have a parent here looking for transition services. Let's work together on and see how we can help
Yes.
support. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
Does anybody else have any questions? Eileen? Eileen, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. I feel like I learned a lot. And it's not great to hear, but I think it's important that we heard what was happening up there still with transition, in regards to transition, because we're here to partner and help, and know that you can call if you ever have any need.
Yeah,
And
yeah. But what if the scenario would be if we had youth here who wanted employment or training for that matter, we still have tribal VR programs here, but we also have state VR programs here. And we have to, because they're getting the money to provide training and employment. We're here basically to advocate for the youth to access those services and make sure they move through those programs and make sure they are getting what they need. So that would be what our services would look like, and a transition service would look like with the VR programs locally.
so it sounds like helping that youth understand the employment services, making sure they get connected,
Yes.
helping them make the connection,
Yeah.
monitoring their progress through that as well.
Yes, to be their advocate, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And so are you in the office, Eileen? Is that? Or is that a home office?
My staff is in the office part-time, 4 hours a day, but they still, the rest of the time they work from home. They are all equipped with the equipments to make it so they can work from home. They have, some of them we have to purchase Wi-Fi's for them. They have laptops, they have printers, they have cell phones. So they're all able to work from home.
Well, the only reason I ask is because I'm wanting to get back out on the road again and come up and say hello. So if you're in the office, I'll keep that in mind. Maybe this summer I'll try to get up there again.
Okay, yeah.
It'd be,
Well,
be
we're
great to see you.
here half time. You just have to call and make sure I'm here. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Well, thank
And-
you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank you
Eileen.
so
We really
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, we're coming up on time. I just wanted to really quickly touch on the youth advisory community. We have sent all of those applications out and a description of what that looks like. I'm hoping that you all are taking a peek at your youth in your area and seeing if it's a good fit. You've got a good youth. I don't know that I've touched base yet to see how many applications we've gotten in, but we do have a deadline of July 31st. So, you know, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Did you want to add anything, Cheryl or Chris, to that before we adjourn?
I think we're
I
just,
do.
oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, go. No, you go ahead, Charles. Sorry.
No, I'm just like, we're just hoping to get one youth from every state. You know, the goal here is that this is transition work and that we want to hear from the youth about what it is that they're looking for. So it's really, I guess, really important to kind of push through. And, you know, if you don't know how, or how, you know, how can we support helping get the word out? So just really want a robust group of youth, a diverse group of youth to really help support the project and so that we, as parent centers, know what they need and to give them the right resources.
Yeah, and it is a paid position, so to speak. And our application deadline is July 30th, so that we can work with the pool of applicants to set up and provide their training in the months of August and September.
Might have put this in the email and I could go back and look, but do you know how they will meet and when they will meet?
That's all going to be part of, once we get the pool of applicants, they'll be trying to, I would imagine, some form of polling to see when, you know, most folks can, and it would be virtual
Right.
right now.
Yeah.
So it'd be a virtual meeting, and it'll likely very much be up to the people who will be involved in it.
Okay. I've got a couple youth in mind and I'm just thinking of school and work schedules. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know with Raise, they have a youth group too, and most of their meetings, they do evenings, like later evenings to accommodate. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm assuming it will probably look closer to that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
All right,
We don't
well,
have a community of practice for July, so
that's right.
enjoy your month off. We'll get back in August. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions.
Everybody.
Well, that's it. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Eileen. Appreciate it.
Mhm.